Welcome back live with you tonight here on In Focus, and thanks for staying on. The SACP has slammed Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's budget speech, saying it is elitist. The party says that it is not aligned with President Cyril Ramaphosa's plans to solve the energy crisis. It has, however, welcomed the extension of the Social Relief of Distress grant and says that government must extend this grant further. Let's unpack this bit further with Dr. Alex Mashilo, speaking on behalf of the South African Communist Party. Dr. Alex, good evening. Thank you very much for your time, as always, being with us tonight here on In Focus. Let's look at the policy proposals presented in this budget, and let's go step by step on it so that you tell me your feeling. Firstly, what the expenditure proposals are talking about, what the spending program is going to be, what the tax proposals are. But let's begin here. Let's look at the budget framework itself and what does that tell us about where this government is. There's a budget surplus. There is a consolidated budget deficit that will decline by 4.2% of the GDP in 2022-2023. There is an ESCOM debt relief, which of course puts a spanner in the works and changes the step of government as far as public debt is concerned, so it's going to rise. There is, of course, the question of an increase in servicing debt that will now increase from 18% to 19.8%, which means that money that would otherwise be going to service delivery issues will now have to go to servicing debt. That framework, what is the response of the SACP to that particular budget framework?
Yes, it is important to understand the framework against the background of the conditions under which it has emerged. We have had 26 years of policy failure to overcome the crisis high levels of unemployment, poverty and inequality. In 1996, the government imposed the neoliberal economic policy called growth, employment and redistribution. At the end of that year, unemployment rose from below 20% to above 20%. Since 1996, unemployment has never come down to 20%, not to mention any level below that one. We have seen after 2008, our economy continuing to struggle with low levels of growth, which also affected government revenue. These things do not come from outside the country only in the form of the impact of the global crisis. They are also a reflection of domestic policy failures. I mean, you just referred to the surplus figures that you mentioned. In the context where in the third quarter of 2022, we had within our borders a population of approximately 12 million active and discouraged work seekers. Under this framework, it is important for the budget to fire on all cylinders to overcome the crisis of unemployment, to increase our total productive capacity, because by so doing, you are also strengthening our revenue sources in the form of the tax base. But the budget framework we have followed thus far has been unable to turn South Africa around. That's where we are.
Spending programs are pretty much looking at spending more money on what is called the social wage, but also leaning towards learning and culture, which is allocated some money. Community development also fastest growing function, averaging an 8% annual over a medium term, mainly due to allocations of additional funding in that particular space. What do you make of that spending program and how it's allocated?
Look, let's take the social wage because there is much ado about it. And let's take just one item, the Social Relief of Distress grant introduced in 2020, the 350 Rand grant. I'm sure you would appreciate that it has experienced inflationary erosion. what it bought when it was introduced in 2020, it cannot buy right now because of the changes that have occurred in the inflation framework. In nominal terms, it is 350 rand, but in real value terms, it has declined. The same thing has been happening when coming to other grants, which have not been increasing commensurate with inflationary pressures. And we saw the ANC respond in a manner that we should welcome in January, through the January 8 statement, when it said the grants should be protected against inflationary pressures. It remains to be seen whether the approach now announced in the budget by the Minister of Finance will be adequate, given the background against which grants have not been increasing in that particular manner. You look at our schools today. There are, of course, we mention expenditure on education, but I'm sure there are so many schools that you know which lack many facilities, and there is inequality in education. You look at the no fee-paying schools and you compare them to fee-paying schools. You will see the inequality between the two and appreciate why some of these schools, like for example, GP High School for boys in Johannesburg, will perform much better than Manlemang High School in Ramohorani, Elias Motwanedi High School. So we need to go deeper into these allocations and say to what extent are they transformative and to what extent do they contribute towards the elimination of inequality, including in this very important sphere of education.
Dr. Alex, unfortunately, we are out of time, and I didn't even get to touch on the text proposals. Shall I invite you to come back on Sunday so that we can talk that bit a little bit more, because there are some interesting things there on those text proposals, particularly around the incentive for putting solar on the panel. But we have to leave it there for tonight. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I wanted to just say some few words about the situation at Eskom. But I appreciate that you do not have time.
No, unfortunately, our time is up now. But I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on. That is Dr. Alex Mashilo, the SACP's spokesperson. Unfortunately, because of time, I'm going to have to leave it there for tonight.